Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Zareth Prevails, a Grand Arena story. You may or may not notice this episode that I'm editing this video and recording it on my phone. I got a lot of positive feedback from my last video after using my microphone and using the editing program on the computer, but that just took so long. Until I get the hang of it, I'm just going to be doing some on the phone and some using the computer. Eventually we'll transition all the way there, so we'll get there, but just please hang tight. Wait for it. So we're in the semifinals of the final group, and it's exciting times. I could potentially make Kyber League if I really do well. If I win both of my matches and get full clears, I could make the Kyber League. So that's exciting. Before we get into the match, though, I just wanted to plug my Discord channel, just like I've been doing. Please go to the video description of this video, and you'll find the link there. Please join it. We've got some people joining already. We're starting to collaborate, and please don't miss out. It's really great. And if you don't like collaboration, then go check out the Grand Arena Counters page. That's also linked in this video description. It has all my teams that I've used and all the teams that I've faced in Grand Arena, and a link to the video so that you can check it out. You don't have to ask anyone. You can just hang out and go your own way without ever having to pay attention or talk to other people. So, okay, on to the match. Now, this match was a little bit surprising. A little bit of background: my opponent was actually in the same guild as the guy who beat me last time in the finals for the last Grand Arena, and so apparently my opponent had the chance to make it to the Kyber League if they won out, and so they got paired with their guildmate, and their guildmate let them win, which meant I wouldn't get a rematch. I ended up in the same group as the guy who beat me in the finals, if I haven't mentioned that yet. But I didn't get matched with him. He lost his first round by, essentially he forfeited, let his friend get max points or whatever. And so I'm facing this guy, and the mods and all of the gear and stuff, I'm actually a little bit advantaged. My opponent actually doesn't have Darth Malak at all, which is surprising. That's not like a bad thing, no judgment or anything, but my opponent used General Grievous as their arena team, so I didn't necessarily have that tension. I was advantaged in this match going into it, which is not really something I had been accustomed to, but right away I saw an opportunity. My opponent had a Jango Bounty Hunter squad, which is the cool thing to do these days, and I was excited to try my Finn squad out again. Finn being just a regular member instead of my Gear 11 Scavenger Ray. And the theory of it, in case you missed it in the last video, is I was just getting smoked against Jango teams using Finn as using Scavenger Ray as my fifth member, and really she didn't add enough to the team, and so one of my watchers, viewers, commenters, whatever you guys identify as, they suggested that I use Finn instead of Scavenger Ray, just because he has a special that no one knows about, or at least I didn't know about, that regenerates the whole team's protection by 20%. And I mean, that's a pretty big deal for this team. That's one of its huge weaknesses in Grand Arena. It's not a good defensive team, but it is a pretty strong offensive team if you're willing to sacrifice some banners. So this is kind of the attempt to have our cake and eat it too, so to speak. So, using him to be able to regenerate the protection is a big deal. And then he also has a stun, which obviously didn't go off just now, but he has that stun, and that's also a big control piece, because as you continue on with your matches, you want to make sure that you're able to, you want to go faster than your opponent. You want to be able to dispel everything. You want to be able to stun and daze and all that, and now they have more of that with Finn. You didn't really need more damage, so I got 57 banners there. That's not maybe as good as I was hoping for. I think I'll approach it a little differently the next time and have Finn start healing earlier on in the match, but 57 isn't too bad. we're always trying for Banner's efficiency, obviously. And speaking of Banner's efficiency, we have this match here. My opponent did not have Malak, and I had a faster Revan and Badstila, so I decided to go under strength here. I thought there was a relatively good chance that I would be able to smoke this team, and the fact is I did. The match lasted for just over 22 seconds, and I got a ton of banners and an understrength win, which I desperately need in order to get into the Kyber. So first zone cleared, and the back is a couple teams that we've come to expect, Geonosians and First Order. So now we have a really strange team going on here. We have the typical General Grievous team, only it's missing General Grievous, and I really wasn't sure what to do against this team. It didn't really warrant like my Jedi Knight Revan team, but it still had a lot. I mean, it had gear 13 B1, which he does a ton of damage. People kind of scoff when I say I'm gonna get gear 13 on him, but he does a ton of damage here. So what I ended up doing, I decided that I'd clear the back zone of the other side, on the other side, and if there wasn't anything too egregious, that I would just plan to beat the bugs, the Geonosians, with my Jedi Knight Revan if I needed to. And instead, I would just take an understrength Traya squad against this, because really the only thing that truly threatens a Traya squad in this circumstance against Separatists are the hits from General Grievous, and he's so ridiculous, obviously. So we have our control elements. I'm talking about that a lot, just to be able to make sure you kind of get the situation that you want. So we have the Fracture with Thrawn and Isolate with Traya, which Isolate is so nice against B2, obviously, because he's not getting that massive amount of extra turn meter and stuff. But I was really impressed with this squad, actually. They're super annoying. Every time you hit them, they have the chance to counter because it's Dooku lead. And not everyone really knows the text to Dooku's lead. I read it right before the match, and it's frankly, it's not an overwhelming lead by any stretch, but it is a pretty good one. I mean, they're with this team, I was impressed with how strong it was, how much of a challenge. I mean, never at any point did I feel that threatened in this match, but I was I had to use one of my meta teams, even still. So, I kind of downgraded. Traya isn't as good as Jedi Knight Revan, so I was able to use that squad, but I was able to save the Jedi Knight Revan for a different match. But I mean, in a lot of ways, Traya and Jedi Knight Revan occupy a very similar space in terms of which counters you consider to use. They're in that top tier list. And so really this was a good team. I'm gonna have to think about it a little more. I was kind of nervous, actually, that General Grievous was going to be in a different squad in the back, like just hanging out with a bunch of Geonosians or something, where he could just be irritating, and every time a Geonosian died, he'd just go crazy. But when I saw the Geos in my opponent's other zone, I really, obviously, I wasn't that concerned about that anymore, since the Geonosians had an obvious lack of Grievous, and it occurred to me that my opponent had probably kept Grievous just to be able to counter my own Darth, Malak, and Revan if that was necessary. Alright, so I think this is probably my biggest mistake in this match. Well, maybe not my biggest, but it is one of my more egregious ones, just because so First Order absolutely counter a Qi'ra team. They love killing Nest. That we talked a little bit about that last episode. There's really not any of the B tier teams that kill Nest better. They deal with her so well. So First Order is obviously attractive for that reason. And then they're good at taking out Vander Chewbacca. And it's an interesting thing. This team doesn't have L3, so they're able to fit a lot in here, you know. Normally you have to choose either like L3 plus, you have to pick like 1 DPS, or you have to sacrifice something in order to get Zalbar and Mission in there, you know, sacrifice Nest, but they actually have 3 good offensive weapons here at the cost of only having 1 tank. So, you know, you want to kill Vandor Chewbacca first, and you just keep Nest stunned forever if you can. And, you know, the mistake here wasn't using First Order necessarily against this team. I mean, First Order is obviously advantaged. They're almost always going to win, assuming you're, you know, playing a focused game. You know, your guys aren't undergeared or whatever. But the thing is, I think maybe I should have used Bounty Hunters here. Bounty Hunters have a little bit less expected value against this team, just because they don't deal with Nest as well. Nest can go a little nuts if you're not managing her that well, and the Zalbar taunt can really get in the way of managing that. But otherwise, I think Bounty Hunters handle this matchup just fine, and they don't handle the First Order matchup in the back just fine. They do horrible against First Order, in fact. And so it's more about trying to maximize our matchup potential, just trying to decide, you know, leave as many options open as possible, because after I used First Order here, I kind of didn't have many teams to be able to counter that First Order team, and we'll get to that in a minute here. But you know, as Nest is slowly being drained of life and destroyed. Now this match, the only thing that's just a little bit frustrating about using First Order and trying to regenerate your protection is First Order Officer doesn't really have a way of doing that. He's like the one guy on the whole team who doesn't regenerate his protection. Like, he can help others regenerate their protection, and there's a little bit of passive regeneration if he can get one of those buffs here and there, but he's not only like the easiest to damage, but he's also the guy who you can't really regenerate. So 59, sometimes you just have to live with that. That's an okay score. I've already been dropping a few points here and there, so I really needed to tighten my shot group, but overall things have been going pretty well. I've cleared the first 2 zones that my opponent had, and Shaak T in the back is really interesting. There's no Zetas on her. That team isn't even all the way gear 12. She's gear 8, so not really that much of a threat. And Nightsisters, we've saved Padme just for them, just like we've talked about every single time. And I'm actually going to speed this match up just a little bit, just because we've seen it so often. You know, every match is going to be a little different here and there. My opponent had a pretty standard Nightsisters team for this at this point. Everyone's got the Nest as the 5th Nightsister, which makes me sad. Everyone's kind of discovered that that's the best combo. I was really loving it for a while when everyone thought the Acolyte or Talia was for some reason better, but no, everyone's got the truth. So one thing I wanted to point out in this match is if you can get 3PO to put a couple of his debuffs of confusion on Zombie stops gaining that taunt. And then, of course, this very second you kill one of the Nightsisters, then Zombie dies and clears all debuffs. So it's not like this long-term awesome use, but for those who are like super duper high health zombies, it can really help if you have the opportunity to get a couple stacks on Zombie from that 3PO debuff. Then Zombie is kind of, until Zombie dies for one way or another, until Zombie dies, you have the ability to just, you know, kind of go crazy on all the other Nightsisters. So 59 banners, that's well within the acceptable range. I'd say in general between 56 and 60 banners is probably what you want. So I was feeling pretty confident at this point. I'd taken out all of the strong teams besides Geonosians, and Geonosians can absolutely do some good damage. There's no doubt about that, but they're easily countered by Jedi Knight Revan, so I wasn't worried about that. What I found, though, was that I didn't really have a strong counter to First Order, and I've already covered that a little bit here. Now, one thing I have been doing, just because I want an extra counter to teams like this, is I put all the Zetas and Gear 12 on all of the Phoenix, and I remodded them, and so they're all ready to go. I think it was a huge mistake, though, to take Ezra, and really, I think I need to remod this Phoenix team, because immediately they just punched me in the face. They started getting a ton of turns, and I kind of panicked. Like, they were doing so well right off the bat that I was not using the optimal abilities. Like, Zeb should have probably just used his basic a minute ago, like his first move, just to get another daze on there to slow down that turn meter train. But, and I'm doing some okay stuff, but you see Hera just died for nothing. I wasn't able to really get her going at all, and she's kind of the linchpin in a lot of ways to getting the squad going. So right away I was starting to feel pretty nervous. Like, this matchup, I think that Phoenix can do really well into First Order, but we don't have a sandbox mode. I can't practice it, so I can only do things in theory, and when things don't go exactly as you kind of anticipated initially, things can get pretty rough really fast. So, I've got 4 members left, but they're all super low health. Kanan is stunned. Sabine is stunned. Now Sabine's dead. Things went out of control pretty quick. So, I haven't given up on Phoenix yet. I mean, I'm stuck with them for better or worse. I used all of my July Zetas on First Order, so that was good planning on my part. It really felt worth it after this matchup, but I can't remember the last time I've lost to First Order at any point, and especially when the stakes were so high. I mean, my opponent had clearly left a ton of teams on in reserve for offense, and I mean, it just killed me that I had lost this match out of all of them. It's like, if you lose to Nightsisters, at least you can say, well, I mean, it's Nightsisters. They're good. They're solid. So against First Order, they are a good team, but you shouldn't be losing to them that often, at least not at my level, in my opinion. And by at my level, I don't mean like I'm like this transcendent player. I mean at like the 5 million-ish GP mark, I should have enough teams to have a solid counter to First Order, even after I've taken out a lot of good teams. So, anyways, I decided to hold off and, avoid kind of that emotional response of, I lost my perfect win streak there. I decided not to just go in immediately and make an emotional decision. Just wanted to give it some space, destroy the other teams first, and then revisit the First Order team. I mean, they didn't have a leadership. Anyways, I wanted to make sure I did it as perfectly as possible. So, taking Jedi Knight Revan in against Geonosians, it can be a little nerve-wracking. Jolie came just a tiny bit close to death there. I really need to remod him, or rather upgrade his mods to get him back to 6E, just to make him a little more annoying. But really what you want to focus on is just killing that Brood Alpha. Once he's gone, then their hive mind ability goes away, and they're just kind of fish in a barrel. So after you do that, now all you see, like, I'm not hesitating because it's like these super hard decisions, like, oh no, am I actually going to be able to kill these remaining bugs? It was more like, how can I get the most banners possible here? Because I've already dropped a ton from First Order. If I'm going to have any hope of winning this, I need to just maximize. So, I was able to get most of my guys back up to their full protection, but the bugs just kind of died too fast. I wasn't able to get them all the way there. So, that it is what it is. 60 banners, that's just fine. You miss one banner here and there. I mean, it's just inevitable. Your opponent's going to be dropping them too. You obviously you want to play perfectly if possible, but anyways. So after I went all Starship Troopers on those bugs, I decided that I'd revisit the First Order team, and they didn't have a leadership. They had 3 good characters, and they're all solid in a vacuum, honestly, but they didn't have that crazy synergy that KRU gives them. So I decided to take 4 bounty hunters because I still had a ton of wins that I would need to get using an undersized squad. So really, this was a no-brainer. It wasn't going to be that difficult to be able to get all the points in here. The goal is to not only get the undersized feat, but I also was hoping that I'd be able to take back a couple banners. You get 60 for the 5-man win with full protection and health. You get 40 if you get an undersized, or not an undersized, but a second chance win, and then however many you're undersized, you can get an extra 4 bonus points. So theoretically you could get up to like 44 in this match, and I decided I wasn't going to underestimate them too bad. I mean, Kylo Ren was my very first Zeta. I know how crazy he can be in terms of just like destroying an entire team. So I took 4 bounty hunters, which obviously worked just fine. No idea how it would have gone with 3. I didn't want to mess around with that because another loss to that team and I would almost certainly lose this match. So all that was left really was Shaak T and her clones, which is a team I have never before faced, and I just really didn't know what to do. So predictably, I decided to just underestimate them as much as possible and try to get another understrength win. And I think the theory's pretty solid, actually. Shaak T only had like 20,000 maximum health or effective health combined with protection and health combined. So, and then the troopers, even with, I did all the math, or at least some rough math, and they didn't have high health or protection even after the Shaak T bonuses. So I took 4 guys so I could get another understrength win if possible. And we're seeing a little bit of back play, play back against the troopers. 5s had a decent amount of gear on him, and so unfortunately it prevented me from getting the extra +1 banner, but 60 banners is still fine. And I got another understrength win. So after all of that, I don't know. The score was pretty decent for having failed 1 attack, so I don't really know. I hate losing an attack. It just really demoralizes me. And then I got to just sit around and wait for my opponent to attack. So their first attacks took out all of my strong teams in 1 shot, and they've missed like 7 total banners after all this. But then there was a small glimmer of hope. My Commander Luke team in the back ended up taking like 9 banners from my opponent, which meant that they would need to average 55 against the Rex Wampa team and 55 against Qi'ra Nest in order to beat me. So I went to bed. They weren't attacking anymore, and I went to bed just like, crap, I could really lose this. Maybe I'll win, but probably not. And I woke up, and this was the screen that greeted me, I think. It was a screen that told me I won, which was really great. I stared at the numbers for a while, and I really don't know what happened. My opponent just lost. I mean, I think I talked about it in my last episode a little, but Commander Luke can draw another good team, and they almost never actually get a defense, but that's not really the point. Then people have to kill that Qi'ra team and that Rex Wampa team, which are great for stealing banners, and a lot of times people don't have the ability to actually regenerate their protection against those teams, and those teams do really good against taking out protection and health. So in this case, I actually won by a pretty large margin, all things considered. One thing that's really interesting, though, I don't know if I've ever gotten a win off of my opponent not failing a single attack. They won every single attack, but they dropped enough banners across all 8 that I ended up getting the win anyways. Anyways, guys, we're all out of time. Thank you so much for the support you've been showing for this channel, and please don't forget to leave a like if you liked this. That's a really great indicator of success in this world. And yeah, join us on Discord. Stay tuned for the last round, which I may be able to get into Kyber, who knows. But anyways, thank you so much for watching, and remember that in all things, Xaereth prevails.